It was a time of terror on the high seas, as pirate raiders ruled the waves. The pirates, led by Captain Redbeard, are a powerful force of renegades. No Imperial treasure is safe when these seafaring mates are around. Their sailing ships are as fast as anything in the Imperial fleet, their island outposts fortified and well hidden. Whether on sea or land, they are a strong adversary for Governor Broadside and the Imperial Guards.
Of all the pirates who sailed the seas during the golden age of piracy, from dark-eyed Kate Putnam to Captain Archibald, one name stands out as the most notorious and influential buccaneer in history: Captain Redbeard. He won, lost, hunted, and hid vast fortunes over his lifetime. His list of friends was short and his list of enemies long, though they intertwined so much it was hard to tell whose side he was on. In this multi-part documentary series, we'll piece together lore from the Lego sets, comics, audio dramas, and video games to tell the story of one of the most beloved figures in Lego history, Captain Redbeard. Near a deserted island in the tropical sea, an Imperial vessel dropped anchor. The ship, the HMS Sea Lion, was nothing less than the flagship of the Imperial fleet. This was its maiden voyage, for it had been commissioned by the king for the specific purpose of retrieving millions of dollars worth of gold hidden on the island years before. The soldiers aboard were some of the king's finest, wearing the red coats of the Imperial Guard, also known as the Royal Guard. Part of the king's Royal Navy, their sailing skills and bravery were unmatched. Better equipped and better trained than their blue coat counterparts, this group of explorers charted new territory and protected royal treasure. While the Bluecoats had the thankless task of guarding the neglected imperial settlements, serving at the whims and dictates of local officials like Governor Broadside, the Imperial Guard answered directly to the king himself. The Redcoat forces included the rank-and-file musketeers and specialized officers such as guardsmen, dragoons, and arms masters. The highest-ranking officers were members of the nobility, including the Chamberlain himself, who oversaw imperial accounting, and multiple members of the de Cheese-Slope family, such as Commodore de Cheese-Slope, nephew to the Duchess de Cheese-Slope, and Admiral de Cheese-Slope, uncle of the Duchess. The exact reason the king had buried a fortune in the manner of the buccaneers who had plagued the tropical sea is lost to history. The Imperial Guard did have a craft fitted out for this exact purpose, the Bounty Boat. Why the king chose this year to retrieve the royal gold is equally mysterious, though this historian believes it may have been a growing food crisis caused by the recent invasion of gold-seeking pirates, led by Captain Redbeard. The commander of this mission was Admiral Woodhouse, who had a low opinion of Governor Broadside and his methods for dealing with pirates. While the king had been taken in by Broadside's exaggerated tales of buccaneer bases laid waste and ships smashed, Woodhouse thought that Broadside was a fool. Unlike Broadside, who had no respect for the Spanish, Woodhouse was not opposed to collaboration with the Imperial Armada and likely would have been aware of Don Carlos's account of the governor's botched attempt to take a Spanish galleon. But while Woodhouse was unconvinced by Broadside's methods, the governor had wormed his way into the king's favor, and Woodhouse had no reason to doubt that Redbeard's forces had been decimated. By all accounts, Redbeard's flagship had been sunk, his crew scattered and adrift, the pirate leader himself a castaway, pursued by sharks. Unfortunately for the Imperials, Redbeard and his pirates were far from defeated. The pirates had also managed to learn about the hidden royal treasure themselves. While Broadside still held their ancestral gold in the El Dorado fortress, the pirates appeared to be more than happy to put off retrieving it in order to pursue this much bigger prize. It would be disastrous for Broadside if the pirates found the royal treasure first. Fortunately, with some outside assistance, Woodhouse completed his mission. The treasure was recovered, boats loaded, and soon the flagship set sail with the gold secured safely on board. They were spotted leaving the island by the pirates, however, who knew exactly what the Sea Lion carried in her hold. When it appeared, the sight of the Black Sea's Barracuda struck fear into the hearts of most Imperial Guards. That was to be expected. The last anyone had heard, Lieutenant de Martinet had sent it to the bottom of the sea with a well-placed cannonball. Now she was a vessel resurrected, sailing the seas with Redbeard once again in command. But the Sea Lion was a fast ship, and she was able to make it to Port Royal with the treasure intact. As was to be expected, Admiral Woodhouse blamed Governor Broadside. This most recent reappearance was completely at odds with the governor's repeated claims to have dealt with the pirates, first during the Imperial inspection, and then again after the battle at Blackhead Rock. Ironically, while the two men were at odds, each was often mistaken for the other. Broadside had even taken to wearing a fashionable red coat, making the resemblance absolutely uncanny. Woodhouse and his soldiers made themselves at home in the Eldorado Fortress and in Port Royal, recruiting several of the Bluecoat soldiers to fill out the Imperial Guard ranks. The Admiral wasted no time in constructing a fortress using the same plans as the existing Imperial Trading Post fortification in Fenzance. That port was one of the earliest settlements on the island and had been a trading hub for shipping across the Empire. It was a safe port for cargo ships from all corners of the world, with no pirate having set foot inside during its long centuries of operation. Woodhouse no doubt hoped that his fort would make Port Royal similarly secure. This was a grim development for the pirates, but Redbeard was gathering his allies. Around this time, Bosun Will had rejoined the captain aboard the Barracuda, possibly in order to stop Redbeard from dealing too much damage to the Imperial settlers. However, his attitude toward his foster father seemed to have cooled since the battle at Blackhead Rock. Redbeard had again set him adrift after a fit of temper following that defeat, an overreaction that was becoming an unfortunately regular occurrence. He would address Redbeard more formally during this time, often calling him Sir. Bosun Will's clever planning and strategy was a stark contrast to Redbeard's preference for pirates to leap into action without a second thought. To deal with Woodhouse and the Imperial Guards, Redbeard needed a more powerful partner, an ally who wasn't afraid to strike fast and take the low road to victory. To this end, Redbeard called in an old friend. Jake Blake, better known as the unscrupulous Ironhook, was similar to Redbeard in many respects, having adopted a number of piratical accessories pioneered by Redbeard himself. Like their Imperial counterparts, they could easily be mistaken for each other. In fact, Ironhook would later remark that the two were cast from the same mold. But while Redbeard's bluster and short temper concealed a genial nature, Ironhook was a ruthless, unpredictable loose cannon. Ironhook's crew included the jolly Lolbrook, who enjoyed wordplay just as much as swordplay, and the more sinister henchman Scarred Johnny, who sometimes took over command when Ironhook was stricken with one of his frequent bouts of malaria. Redbeard found this group of renegades more than willing to gang up, and together they set about a reign of terror that gripped the Imperial settlements in the tropical sea. The memory of Redbeard's previous invasions was still fresh in the settlers' minds, and the captain became known as the dreaded pirate Redbeard. Redbeard relished the notoriety of his title. Just as in his younger years, he was increasingly greedy for power and treasure, this time on a larger scale. But, as the English officer William Shatter noted, he was still the sort of man who would go out of his way to help others at sea. While he might grumble at such an undertaking, Redbeard did assist Shatter in rescuing survivors of a shipwreck, earning the man's respect. Ironhook, on the other hand, was driven to exploit and ruin his victims if it was in his own interests. It was now a question of how long Redbeard could remain the fearsome leader he presented himself to be before his better nature won out. Redbeard and Ironhook's pirates began plotting to smuggle the treasure out of Port Royal. They found a location for a new hideout. Here, Rummy and another pirate constructed a shanty from timber and palm leaves, possibly with the assistance of a third pirate who had infiltrated the Imperial Guard, though he may have simply been intending to steal the treasure back himself. Unlike Redbeard, Ironhook had no ship, but he and his crew built a small escape craft that would allow them to sneak away from Port Royal with the treasure. They plundered the governor's treasury and escaped, while Redbeard set sail in a Barracuda to meet them as planned. Woodhouse was obsessed with hunting down the pirates after they had stolen the gold out from under the governor's nose. He set sail in the swift Sea Lion in hot pursuit, determined to launch an attack on Redbeard with an obsessive vengeance worthy of Captain Ahab himself. The raft raiders set course for Forbidden Island, surviving a shark attack en route. Lolbrook returned from the encounter with all his limbs intact, and 10 shark teeth as souvenirs. From there, it seems the treasure was moved to Rock Island Refuge, where Redbeard had already imprisoned at least one Imperial Guardsman. With the assistance of a Lego maniac, Woodhouse launched a swift attack on Rock Island Refuge, personally defeating Redbeard in a duel atop a rope bridge. His forces freed the imprisoned guardsmen and escaped with the royal gold. The attack left Redbeard's crew in disarray, bringing a temporary calm to the havoc caused by the pirate alliance. While he had handily defeated Redbeard, Woodhouse also encountered Ironhook during this battle, a pirate he would come to fear above all others. Even Woodhouse's righteous fury was no match for Ironhook's ruthless brutality, and in the future he would avoid confronting Ironhook directly. The final destination of the royal gold was a closely guarded secret known only to the Lego maniac, who appears to have offloaded the invaluable treasure at the Imperial Trading Post in Port Penzance. The island of Sabatino is now home to 2 vast treasures, a chest of ancestral gold claimed by the pirates, currently secreted away in the bowels of the Eldorado Fortress, and the millions of dollars worth of royal gold at the Imperial Trading Post. Knowing this, Redbeard and his pirates kept a close eye on all trading activity around the island. Redbeard devised a secret plan to intercept outgoing ships from Sabatina, away from the protection offered by the Imperial forces. If they carried any of the royal gold or the pirates' treasure aboard, they would be swiftly relieved of it. Meanwhile, tensions were high between Woodhouse and Broadside. The theft of the royal gold wouldn't have improved the admiral's low opinion of the governor, but it seemed the king was still convinced otherwise. Imperial Guard reinforcements were underway, but when they arrived, the fleet would be under Broadside's command, with Fenzance serving as the home port. And to add insult to injury, the Sea Lion was placed at Broadside's disposal as his personal flagship, its mission now to protect all merchant treasures and ensure safe passage for all ships flying the Imperial flag. After years of barely successful politicking, Broadside was finally on the rise. The Imperial forces proved somewhat successful, warding off the Barracuda and capturing a small pirate vessel. The Imperial Guard also took charge of a small bastion and prison at Cannon Cove on Black Reef Island. This was close to the pirate stronghold on Forbidden Island, though this may have only made it easier for captive pirates to escape. But taking on the Imperial Guard with the Barracuda and Ironhook's raft raiders alone was never Redbeard's endgame. He had already invested treasure and manpower in constructing 2 new ships, and they were ready for launch at last. The Skull's Eye schooner, known in some waters as the Black Skull, or Dark Shark II, was an impressive 3-masted vessel designed for battle with Imperial forces and a worthy successor to the Barracuda. She was the most dangerous ship on the 7 seas. Several of Redbeard's crew are known to have transferred to his new command, including Bosun Will, First Mate Rummy, Port and Starboard Broadside, and Lady Anne Anchor. The post of quartermaster aboard the Skull's Eye was filled by Steve, once a law-abiding merchant captain who had recently turned pirate. The Renegade Runner, also known as the Sea Vulture, or Sea Star, was smaller, but it was also the fastest ship in the pirate fleet. On the open sea, no Imperial Guard ship could hope to catch her. In skirmishes against Admiral Woodhouse, the runner would give vital support to the Skull's Eye schooner. Ironhook took command of the Renegade Runner, and he proved to be a fair navigator, taking readings from the ship's compass to direct the ship to safer waters after each raid. Redbeard's loyal first mate Rummy was often seen aboard the ship, likely allowing Redbeard to keep an eye on Ironhook. With these 2 ships spearheading the pirate fleet, Broadside and Woodhouse were truly outmatched until the rest of the Imperial fleet arrived. Whoever is not strong must be clever, the governor said at this time, knowing that he needed a scheme to hold on to his position of power through the crisis. Not long after the launch of the Skull's Eye, Redbeard spotted the governor's ship leaving the island on a course to the northeast with treasure aboard. The Skull's Eye launched a swift attack on the Sea Lion, with Redbeard personally boarding her to seize the treasure. Unfortunately, a mishap with the schooner's crane sent the captain tumbling into the sea. Undaunted, Redbeard put back in at Rock Island Refuge. He prepared to return to the Imperial Trading Post at Fenzance, determined to finally steal back what remained of the Imperial gold. As the Skull's Eye prowled the waters near Fenzance, Redbeard was hatching a crafty plan. He chose not to train his cannons on the trading post, deciding to infiltrate the fortification instead. His crew were skeptical, given that no pirate had ever set foot inside the Imperial Trading Post itself. But as Will and Redbeard had proven during their earlier pursuit of the Imperial convoy, it was easy to go ashore at Fenzance while avoiding the stronghold at the Imperial Trading Post. Shark Bay, where the post was situated, held many secret places where pirate ships could drop anchor and resupply, making Fenzance almost a free port for pirates under the very nose of the governor and admiral. Before he could reveal his full plan to infiltrate the Imperial Trading Post, Redbeard found his machinations interrupted by the arrival of Jack, another of the Lego maniacs. This interloper was already well known to both Redbeard and Governor Broadside, and Redbeard wasn't about to let him interfere. Jack attempted to escape, but Redbeard offered 10 doubloons to the first pirate to capture Jack and feed him to the sharks. Jack was saved by Governor Broadside, who caught the pirates off guard with a lightning-fast raid by the Sea Lion and returned to the Imperial Trading Post. Here, Governor Broadside supervised the transfer of a chest of the royal gold to be used to help feed the people of Sabatina at last. While one might assume that the governor had the settler's best interests at heart, it seems equally likely that he was attempting to regain some badly needed political capital. The transfer was interrupted by Redbeard, who had snuck onto the beaches of Fenzance with a veritable army of pirates. Redbeard's apparent victory was short-lived, as the Lego maniac hoisted the gold away and led the Imperial Guards in building a wall around the pirates. The pirates were taken to the stockade by Governor Broadside, and it seemed as though the maniac had won the day. But it was all a clever ruse for Redbeard. In the time since he had first seen Spinoza light a fuse to save his crew from captivity back in Port Royal, Redbeard had trained the monkey to steal keys and turn locks. It had been his plan all along to be imprisoned in the otherwise secure Imperial Trading Post, so close to where the gold was held. In short order, he and his men escaped the stockade, seized the royal gold, scuttled the Imperial Flagship, and escaped aboard the swift Renegade Runner. Everything was going according to plan for Redbeard. He guided the runner to a hidden cave where he unloaded the chest to take account of the doubloons inside. Unfortunately, the maniac had reappeared to help the guardsmen rebuild their flagship. He sailed the vessel right into the hidden cave, trapping Redbeard on shore. But Redbeard had planned for even this eventuality. The pirates quickly reloaded the treasure back on the runner, and Redbeard opened a hidden door through the use of a well-placed lever. With expert shots from their cannon, the runner's crew caused cave-ins that sealed both exits as they sailed through the hidden cavern passageway. Redbeard returned to Rock Island Refuge with the stolen Imperial treasure, but it seemed there was no containing the Lego maniac. He had constructed a lever and freed the Imperial Flagship from the cave fast enough that they were able to follow the pirates back to their stronghold. Faced with an ambush by Jack on land and the Imperial Flagship just offshore, Redbeard was left with no choice but to surrender to Governor Broadside once again. With Redbeard back in custody, Broadside hoped to find a treasure map, the location of which was also known to the pirate. The Renegade Runner and Skull's Eye schooner were still at large, however, and the other pirates soon launched an all-out assault on Fenzance to free their captive captain. While the runner blockaded Shark Bay, the Skull's Eye dropped anchor 200 meters away from the trading post, trapping the Imperial Flagship. A band of pirates went ashore to rescue Redbeard, and a battle ensued between the governor's soldiers and the buccaneers fighting to free their captain. Redbeard soon took to the deck of the Skull's Eye to take the fortress once and for all and ensure his control of the tropical sea. But he was again opposed by a Lego maniac who rebuilt the fort, adding additional cannon for its defense. Redbeard's fleet was scuppered thanks to the maniac's efforts, and Redbeard found himself hoisted out of the water along with several of his officers. The wily captain was still able to escape Imperial custody and salvage both ships, but a blow had been dealt to his wider ambitions. This was one of the last times Redbeard's pirates would present an existential threat to the Imperial settlers, and it was all the fault of the Lego maniac. Redbeard would have realized that he would have to take certain steps in order to meet the meddling maniacs as an equal. In the wake of Redbeard's defeat, the rest of the Admiral's fleet arrived to protect the royal treasure and the settlers. The Imperial Guard Redcoats, or Jackets as they were derisively known by the pirates, became a common sight throughout the Imperial settlements. On the Isle of Yar, the Imperial Chamberlain oversaw the protection and accounting of Imperial riches in a massive Imperial Guard fortress and prison. Under the rule of Admiral Woodhouse and the Chamberlain, suspected pirates were rounded up and imprisoned first, with questions being asked later. The pirates had long lived in fear of Broadside being replaced with a more effective commander. The seemingly permanent installation of Woodhouse in the Imperial Guards was the realization of their worst-case scenario. Woodhouse's fleet, albeit still under Broadside's command, was now the most powerful in the territory. The Skull's Eye was a mighty ship, but faced with a flotilla of fast and well-armed Imperial vessels, she presented a frighteningly large target. Now that the treasures secured on Sabatina were effectively out of reach, Redbeard turned his attention once more to recovering the ancestral treasures still hidden in the tropical sea. This was to be the full-time mission of the Black Sea's Barracuda, and Redbeard also deployed the Renegade Runner to sail from island to island in search of the hidden treasure. During one such treasure hunt, Rummy dueled with an Imperial Guard officer over a chest of gold. Meanwhile, Redbeard took it upon himself to find the treasure of his great-grandfather, hoping to bring an end to his long quest. As the ever-vigilant Imperial Guard secured the territory around Sabatina, the pirates were pushed farther south. While some territory to the north remained lost to Imperial control, including John Silver Island, the seas south of Sabatina became known as the pirates' preferred playground. Now suitably reinforced, Admiral Woodhouse raised anchor on the sea line in the harbor of Fenzance, preparing to set out on an expedition to rid the seas of the pirates once and for all. Spring had arrived, and he intended to use the fair weather to conduct a thorough search of the South Sea. The tables had truly turned, and now the dreaded pirate Redbeard was forced to hide in the face of Woodhouse's overwhelming advantage. Under these pressures, Redbeard was faced with trying to keep his band of renegades together without the easy scores allowed by their terrifying reputations. The Barracuda's crew were mostly loyal, but the same couldn't be said of Ironhook's cutthroats. Cracks were beginning to form in their alliance. Now that Ironhook had command of the Renegade, and having recently been led into disaster trying to rescue Redbeard, the increasingly independent pirate was less willing to provide Redbeard with his full support. Redbeard had a particular grudge against Ironhook's helmsman Scarred Johnny, who was all too willing to engage in the worst kind of profiteering. He had gotten on Redbeard's bad side often enough that the captain was on the lookout for an opportunity to repay him in kind. The two crews came to blows during Redbeard's loosely directed treasure hunts. Having finally acquired a much sought-after treasure map, Redbeard set course to find the gold, only to discover that Ironhook had already recovered it. Even Rummy's presence aboard the runner couldn't keep the two crews from fighting over the treasure, which ended only when the gold spilled overboard during the battle. The timing could not have been worse. As Redbeard's birthday arrived, the captain was taking stock of his life and his failings as a commander. He began to regret ever having tried to rule the waves through a fearful reputation. Not only did it conflict with his innate personality, playing the part of a ruthless pirate king was simply exhausting. As the Skull's Eye dropped anchor in a cove off an uncharted island in the southern sea, Redbeard was hoping to rest, resupply, and perhaps take on some of the bananas he had come to enjoy. As he boarded the longboat to go ashore, he was deep in thought about his invented reputation. Little did he realize that he and his crew were being watched from the shadows, and that his life was about to change once more. We hope you've enjoyed part 6 of our multi-part biography of Captain Redbeard. Do you have any of the sets we've covered here? How did you play with LEGO Pirates? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and check out some of the other videos on our channel. If you'd like to support the channel, check out our membership options or our Patreon page for perks like early access to episodes and your name in the credits. I appreciate each and every viewer, especially those of you who stuck it out for the whole episode, so thanks for joining us on this escape.